Hey, it's day 82 AP Bio. This would normally be the second day of our eco issues presentations. And as we get into those things, one of the things that we'd be trying to figure out is 5 more eco issues that we could actually find practical solutions to for a maple valleyite. But before we do that, I want to take a look at this thing called gasoline, right? So I was thinking about this. How long does it take a tree to eat up a gallon of gasoline? See if you can figure it out, right? Stop me, pause me, see if you can figure it out on your own, and then we'll take it on together. Cool, if we look at this, of course, trees don't eat gasoline, but we'll get to that, right? Gasoline is this wonderful stuff that humans have invented, and it's very, very popular because gasoline, of course, has very high energy density. The other benefit of it is you can carry it around in, say, liquid form. And at room temperature, of course, it will stay in that liquid and quickly vaporize, which makes it an excellent fuel for combustion. Now, gasoline is known as octane. And octane in those little red containers, of course, is C8H18. It's a hydrocarbon. And being a hydrocarbon, it's got lots of bonds, so it contains lots and lots of energy. So let's keep it simple. Let's say that we're going to have 1 gallon, right? 1 gallon of gasoline. So if you think about like a jug of milk, right? A gallon jug of milk, it's about the same weight. Gasoline is actually pretty darn light. That's why it's such a great fuel because, of course, it's light and you can carry it in your car. So if we look at this, if you feel that weight of about a gas can, that would be about 2 pounds, right? London-based sterling. Now, the key thing is I'm going to take that gasoline. I'm not going to give it to the tree because trees would die if I gave them gasoline, but we've tried that many times, right? Instead, I'm going to feed this into my car or your car, right? And of course, we do that because this is an internal combustion engine. It's going to take it and it's going to burn it. And when it burns it, of course, it's going to come out the tailpipe. And as it comes out the tailpipe, we get the energy from it, which drives our car forward, although most of it just turns into heat, right? Over 90% of it gets turned into heat in our cars. They're extremely wasteful in that sense, right? To do that, you got to have, of course, an oxidizer. So we combine it with oxygen in the atmosphere. This is why this reaction is so great. That is going to be stripped from the atmosphere. So when it does that, of course, I'm burning it. Anytime I burn stuff, I make smoke, which is made out of CO2 and water vapor, right? So if we just look at the CO2 part of this, when I burn 2 pounds of gasoline, how many pounds of CO2 does that become in the atmosphere? Well, it's gas. It's really light, but it's all spread out, right? The other part is it's now combined with oxygen, and the oxygen's got some mass to it, right? It's got molar mass 16. When I take those things and I put them together, that 2 pounds of gasoline now becomes 24 pounds of CO2. Now, it doesn't seem heavy because it's coming out the tailpipe and spreading out in the atmosphere. But that 24 pounds, you can feel that's some pretty good weight, right? Now, the good news is, of course, there is something that trees eat, or rather fix, right? And that, of course, is where our trees come in. So let's say that we have this wonderful, giant, mature rainforest tree, right? It's like 200 feet tall. It's got a massive trunk. It is made of tons and tons of carbon because it's gone through carbon fixation. And we learned this year, of course, that they do that in the process of photosynthesis. During those dark reactions, there's the Kelvin cycle, because Kelvin cycle is all about the C, right? And it fixes it into, G3P, and then on to sugar, and eventually into cellulose. That takes it out of the atmosphere. That's the carbon fixation part of it, right? And it builds itself out of the air. And normally I would drop a log during this stuff, and the log, you'd see how heavy they are, because it's a massive tree, multiple tons and tons and tons, right? The question is, okay, if your car, you just burned 2 pounds of gasoline to make 24 pounds of CO2, how long would it take for that tree to gobble up and fix that 24 pounds of CO2? Well, if we look, scientists have done this for us, and we look at the amount of carbon fixed per year for that giant tree, how many pounds of carbon do you think it can fix from the atmosphere on Earth? Some people are like, 100 pounds, 80 pounds, 1,000 pounds, because it's a giant, massive tree. Well, most of the carbon it fixes, it actually uses to make sugar for energy. So it actually burns it and makes its own CO2. So in actuality, the amount that gets put on each year that's fixed from that is the carbon fixed for a single tree for the entire year is about 2 pounds per year. Because, trees move at a slower rate than us. They have a slower metabolism. And that's awesome. That'll take it out of the atmosphere, but that's only 2 pounds, which leaves you with 22 other pounds floating around the atmosphere to warm up the Earth, right? A way to look at this was that means that it would take, for that 24 pounds, it would take 12 years of that tree working consistently. That means no dry season where it shuts itself down, for half the year, to fix just that 1 gallon of gasoline. Or another way to look at it is you could say it would take 12 trees working nonstop 1 year to fix that 1 gallon of gasoline, which tells you an important thing, right? How many times have you filled your gas tank? This is just for 2 pounds. You put a lot more than 2 pounds in your car every time you fill it up. This means an important thing. This means that we need more forests instead of cutting them down and turning them into things like paper and, wood and products that we can grind up and then throw away immediately, or wood chips on your lawn. Right? Yeah, just so you don't have to weed, right? We need more forests, and we need less driving. And, well, don't forget the shipping, because anytime you order from Amazon, it's riding on a cushion of CO2 in the shipping process, all the way from China across the Pacific to you or throughout America. Probably came from Long Beach on the way, right? Now, other things that we can look at this, of course, is how much of that CO2 you put out depends on what you're driving, right? So one of the things we can look at is I drive a compact car. And with a compact car it gets about 32 miles per gallon. At least mine does. I wish it did better than that, right? Whereas one of the most popular cars on the planet, especially in the US right now, is called a sport utility vehicle, the soccer mom mobile, right? It's huge. You can fit your whole family and all the groceries and their little friends in it. That gets about 12 miles per gallon with many of them. And then you see the jumbo tires here in Maple Valley, and you're, that's 8 miles per gallon. Yeah, very nice. Or, you could go the hybrid version, and the hybrid version, which my next car will certainly be, could get like 40 miles per gallon or more if you got a more efficient model, right? I'll be buying a used one of those the next time I do it. Or a new option that's pretty sweet is, the Tesla. The Tesla, of course, being electric, or other electric cars like the Leaf, there's no carbon released during the use of it. There certainly is, of course, during the manufacture of it, because nothing's carbon neutral, right? So if we look at this, that gets about 80 miles per gallon in terms of relevant thing, depending on what your electricity source is. And here in the Northwest, that's usually going to be hydroelectric, so that's less CO2 out there. Still not so good for the orcas and the salmon, right? Everything comes at a cost. But the key thing of this is to take those numbers and make them make sense. Let's say that I fill up my car, right? My car is the compact, and on a full tank of gas, which is 10 gallons of gas, I can go about 320 miles, right? 32 miles per gallon. Right? If I was going to take that car and actually fix this carbon, one of the things I can see with it is that means that I'm going to need to take those 10 gallons of gas, and it's going to take that tree 12 years. So in order to fix just one fill up, one full tank in my car, that's going to take 120 years. That's just 1 week of gas, right? Or 120 trees working for a year. Oh, we kept cutting down those trees. Compare that with, say, an SUV, right? SUVs tend to have larger gas tanks, say 20 gallons, right? Pretty typical to it. I want to take those 20 gallons. That's going to get it the same distance of about 320 miles or less. In fact, it'll get it about the same distance as mine, but twice as much gas, right? That, if I want to take that, that's 20 gallons times the 12 years for the trees. That's going to take 240 years to soak up that carbon. So you can see your choice of vehicle greatly decides how many forests and trees we would need, no matter what choice you make. You can tell that we definitely need more forests, like protected forests with large trees that can do this, because the larger the tree is, the more surface area, the faster it can soak that stuff up. But they're becoming extremely rare. We also especially can affect this by less driving and less shipping. But, next time you see a tailpipe in front of you and you can't see the gas coming out of it, remember that invisible stuff that's warming up the earth and causing all the problems? It's heavy, man, even though it's light, right? It takes a long time to fix those problems. So, we need more forests. Now, key thing with this, of course, here in the Pacific Northwest, we have a huge population boom, especially because of things like Boeing, Microsoft. There's a lot of sweet jobs like Amazon. And with that, the traffic has picked up massively. Imagine how much CO2 is pumping off of this thing that's invisible at this temperature and warming up the earth. Hey, look, there's smog. That would mean that you would need massive force to counteract all these cars, right? And that's just one American city. Imagine all the cities on Earth. Oh. Of course, there are different ways to do it. And it's a graphic I actually pulled off somebody's PowerPoint from the past years, a student PowerPoint. Pretty good one. Going to win the Student Science Award. Better go, Dave. And here shows the same number of drivers and the equivalent cars and all the CO2 that would pump out. And then if you take those same drivers and you put them on a double extender bus like we have here in the Northwest, they can all fit on the one bus and all ride on a fraction of the CO2. Now imagine if you took that and you put that on a light rail. Then you'd have even less emissions because there'd be more people because all of it's now divided between these people. They have a smaller percentage for each of them. Public transport, that takes public investment and education and understanding what's going on, right? Fight the ignorance. So you, of course, have the option. You're going off to college. You will have more options of carpooling on things called buses and public transport. Perhaps they'll make more improvements in Maple Valley with that. Or you could just, do the mini carpool with your friends and help a little bit, or walk to class. That's what I used to do because I lived on campus. Oh, it's cheaper that way. If you don't, of course, make this decision, we should recognize that not only does it warm up the earth, it also causes the pH of the ocean to drop precipitously as it makes carbonic acid. So all those beautiful reefs that I've had the pleasure and honor of seeing in my life, well, they're being converted into this. And in the next 20 years, they'll all be gone because it's not only, of course, turning the ocean into an acid bath that's eating away the calcium carbonate, it's also warming up, making them expel their zooxanthellae, the little algae that live inside of them, and so they starve to death. And if there's no coral, there's no beauty, but there's no fish. And that's why places like, Central America, Africa, South America, Asia, there's a lot of people that are starving right now because, we get about 70% of our protein to 60%, depending on which stats you look at, from the ocean, from fish. Coral reefs are the nurseries of those fishes, as well as our cold water where there's even more CO2 going in. So if you want to fix the problem, drive less, buy less, think more. Carpool. Cool. You're going to, of course, continue with your presentations. You're going to be viewing 16 of the kids' Screencastify ones to get an idea. You can check any of the topics you want. You're going to send them a question. They're going to reply back to you via the email. That's why you're attaching it to the front of your PowerPoint. Then the challenge is to share this information about cars and the idea that you might not have to go to the grocery store every time, even after this coronavirus thing passes. Maybe you could, use your public transport more efficiently. College will give you a great opportunity to do that. Cool. Hopefully realize that there are, of course, choices. You can make those choices. I'm sure that if there was a bus that went all the way to school, I would take it every morning because a lot of the school buses that run for the school are empty because it ain't cool to drive in the bus. But it's going to be a lot more ain't cool because of all this CO2. Ironic.